Hello, you wonderful people. So for today's video, I'm going to talk about some news that's come out recently that there's going to be another Power Rangers movie, but sadly it's going to be another reboot. Obviously, we know that there was a more recent Power Ranger reboot movie that had come out, well, reboot of the Mighty Morphin Power Ranger movie that came out in 2017. And obviously, I did a video on this a little while back because an article I was reading at the time had said that they were planning on doing a continuation, but it seems like they've more recently decided to go in a different direction, which I am bummed about. I don't know how, like, I know some people have very mixed feelings about it. I really liked the 2017 movie. I talked about this, you know, countless times. Like, that movie made me care about them as individuals. Because obviously I grew up with Power Rangers, but for me, all I really cared about, it's like, the kid stuff, them being high school, blah, 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 who cares? Let's get to some morph and let's see them fight and stuff like that. Which obviously, if you remember that 2017 movie, they literally didn't morph for the first time until like the last like 10 or 15 minutes of the movie. I was totally fine with that because I grew to, like, because it was a nice dynamic of seeing them grow together and, you know, them dealing with their personal issues, but them growing together as both a team. And like, it was a really, like, almost, it's a very good coming of age story in a, you know, a Power Ranger movie. It's almost like, you know, a very good coming of age story mixed into with a superhero movie, essentially. And I really dug that. It made, like I said, it made me care about the characters. I am wondering though, because I think if this was me back when I was a kid, when the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers had come out, and this movie I got back then, I probably wouldn't have liked it because all I cared about was the morphing and stuff like that. But I think it's because now I'm 27, character development, stuff like that. It's one of my favorite aspects of a story. So obviously, like, I think that's why that movie spoke to me in that way. Because I mean, you even compare it to the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. So obviously, that was a little different. Obviously, I'm more respectively talking about the movie because the movie, you know, it was a continuation of the show. They're already Power Rangers. They ended up losing their powers, and even then, it wasn't even thinking like, oh, it was near like the last third of the movie they morphed again, but it's like, at least in the middle part, they got that ninja outfits and stuff like that. They were slowly getting their powers back over the course of the movie. So at least you had that to kind of tide you over, which obviously I'm a nut for like ninjas and stuff like that. So I'm like, oh my God, they're ninjas. That's super dope. That's super cool. So that could tide you over. Once again, this movie, they went the entire movie without morphing. There were like steps to it, but it wasn't until the very end when they fully morphed. So, you know, like I said, me as a kid probably wouldn't appreciate it, but me as an adult, I love that aspect to it. So I would have loved to also get, you know, a, you know, continuation of that story, especially following these particular adaptation of these characters, you know. So I thought that was just kind of a neat element to it that, you know, I'm kind of bummed to see that they're not continuing that. So obviously the article I was reading obviously was on Daily Geek. If you want to read the article I was reading, I'll include a link to it in the description down below. But essentially they're going with essentially it seems like it's a time travel story. Apparently it's them going back to the 90s. Now what that necessarily means in the grand scheme of things is not unsure, like whether there's going to be like a new Power Rangers group that was like, oh, technically they've already been established, so this is what I mean is like either there's going to be a new group where it's just kind of like we're not doing an origin story thing again, we're going to take this group of Power Rangers who are already technically established in this particular universe that they're, you know, making, and then they're going to like travel them back in time. Like the article was even suggesting like, oh, are they going to meet up with like the original Rangers or something, like or they, like how they're going to play around this whole time travel angle. So that was actually kind of a neat element. Like, oh, that's a neat direction they're going to take it. Especially what's also interesting, and I'm going to forget his name, but it's the dude who created the show, The End of the Effing World, not the one who actually wrote the original comic book that it was based on, but the show itself, which you know, if you don't know, I'm a huge fan of the TV show. So like, to know that that dude is going to be behind making this one is very interesting, especially because the article made him note of like most people saying was kind of like, oh, looking at the 2017 one as darker, which I guess in the grand scheme of things, I mean, to be fair, I've only seen it once, but I guess I could see like, oh, having a darker element. But it's interesting because I think even Roxy had said this during Collider Live today, which obviously dates this video. The fact of the matter is, it's interesting because, you know, when you think about The End of the Effing World, when you look at that show, it's like, that's a dark show. So it's just interesting considering this movie might not be dark, and that was considered dark, and you're getting someone who made a show that was kind of dark, but maybe he can add something new to this considering his experience with The End of the Effing World. But I mean, who's to say he's going to necessarily draw all of that over, because it's like, well, that's what was needed for that TV show. Obviously going about this movie would probably, you know, add a little something different, but maybe I mean, there's certain elements in that I can definitely see, like I think, in my personal opinion, that show has a great twisted and effed up love story element to it. There is this sweet and beautifulness to it in its own right. Like I said, it's kind of super messed up in a certain regard, but that's just kind of, the comic book is kind of messed up in that same regard. You can take elements and concepts from that and kind of apply it to this Power Rangers movie and just kind of obviously add like a 90s feel and vibe to it, like, especially like when it comes to, you know, or rather take those vibes and add it to like the character development, but obviously kind of add the 90s aesthetic. Like I said, that's currently where the thought process is heading. Like I said, it's just cool and everything. It's like all those elements, oh, that's neat and that's cool, but ultimately I am still kind of bummed because I would have loved the continuation. Even if they did do a thing of, I mean, it would still be neat if they did bring back the original cast from the 2017 movie and did apply it to this, but I don't know if they would necessarily do that or not, so you ultimately have to wait and see. And obviously these are just kind of still the early days, so the fact of the matter is I think throughout the process of the project, a lot of this still could potentially change down the road, so I feel like it's not 100% set in stone, but still, like I said, there's a lot of interesting stuff to kind of take, you know, from all of this. So in the comments down below, I'd love to get to know your thoughts. You see how I feel about it. I'd love to get to know how you feel about it. Are you excited about another reboot? Did you like the 2017 movie first and foremost? And if you did, how does this, you know, new reboot make you feel? If you didn't, how does this new reboot make you feel? Especially, once again, it's a conversation I've had a lot recently about like, oh, reboots and stuff like that. You know, I actually had that conversation about reboots and I didn't even think about the Power Rangers movie, because that's one of the few things that's like obviously a part of my childhood where it's like, oh, that got rebooted, because I brought up the fact there's very few things I've been very passionate about and really cared the most about have ever gotten rebooted. I completely forgot about the Power Rangers thing. I totally let it slip my mind, which is also interesting when you think about it in the grand scheme of things too, because that's always technically getting rebooted, not movie wise, but obviously like every so often you get a new show within the Power Rangers franchise. You know, something funny to kind of think about. But obviously I went off on a huge tangent. Like I said, I'd love to know all your thoughts about this in the comments down below. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about today. Next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good